FIFA is projecting $14 billion in revenue from the 2026 World Cup. That's nearly double what they made in Qatar. While FIFA is counting the money, host cities across the US and Canada are quietly drowning in costs they never saw coming. With 100 days to go, $625 million in federal security funds still hasn't reached the 11 American cities that need it. So who actually pays for the biggest World Cup in history? And who actually wins? Here's the pitch FIFA made to every city that raised their hand to host. 48 teams, 104 matches, 16 cities, a projected $17.2 billion contribution to US GDP. BCG ran the numbers and said each host city could see anywhere from $90 to $480 million in net benefit. Oxford Economics backed it up with talk of 185,000 full-time equivalent jobs across North America. The tournament would basically pay for itself, and then some. So cities lined up, they submitted bids, hired consultants, held press conferences. Mayors stood at podiums and talked about legacy and visibility and what it would mean for their communities. And FIFA said yes to 16 of them. But here's what those cities actually signed when they got the deal. The FIFA host agreement isn't a partnership. It's closer to a one-sided service contract, where the city provides everything and FIFA keeps the revenue. We're talking full tax exemptions for FIFA, its subsidiaries, its suppliers, and its contractors. Georgia gives up an estimated $25 million in sales tax. Florida loses $7.4 million. Missouri forfeits $1.9 million per game under a 2022 state bill that was specifically passed to help Kansas City secure its selection. FIFA keeps 100% of ticket sales. The host city gets the bill for security, transport, infrastructure, and hospitality, and a promise that tourists will spend money at local restaurants. Look at the Arlington Council memo. The city approved $8.1 million in reimbursable expenses tied to hosting. Buried in that same document is an $850,000 city contribution that is explicitly not reimbursable. That's money Arlington is writing off before a single ball is kicked. And Arlington is one of the smaller host markets. Scale that logic across 11 US cities and the numbers get uncomfortable fast. The BCG projection that sounds so good, that $90 to $480 million net benefit range, requires everything to go right. Full attendance, no geopolitical disruptions, tourists showing up and spending, federal funding arriving on time. And as we're about to see, almost none of that is going according to plan. Let's zoom into what this actually looks like on the ground. Start in Vancouver. British Columbia is hosting 7 World Cup games. 7 provincial cost estimates have ballooned to somewhere between $532 and $624 million to pull that off. After projected economic returns are factored in, taxpayers are still on the hook for a net loss of up to $145 million. That's not the total cost, that's the gap after the tourism dollars come in. For 7 games. Now go to Toronto. The city approved a $380 million budget for 6 matches. 6. And this is the same city that just pushed through a 24% property tax increase spread across 3 years, while tent city encampments are growing faster than the city can respond to them. The money for the World Cup and the money for housing aren't coming from different pots. They're competing for the same budget in the same council chambers. Cross the border and go to New Jersey. MetLife Stadium is hosting 8 games, including the final on July 19. But MetLife is an NFL stadium. It has artificial turf. FIFA requires natural grass. So before a single match could be awarded, the stadium needed a $37 million retrofit. That money was spent. It's gone. On top of that, the New York-New Jersey region is staring at $65 million in transit and security costs, and fan festival plans have already been scaled back because federal reimbursements haven't shown up yet. That federal funding situation is the detail that should make every sports business professional stop and pay attention. The US federal government was supposed to allocate $625 million to cover security costs across all 11 American host cities. That money flows through FEMA. And right now, significant portions of FEMA staff are on administrative leave due to a partial agency shutdown. The applications were in the final stages of review, and then they stalled. Miami's chief operating officer, Ray Martinez, went directly to Congress about it. He said without receiving this money, it could be catastrophic for our planning and coordination. That's not an analyst running projections. That's the person actually responsible for keeping the event safe, telling a congressional hearing that the financial foundation is cracking. And here's where the economic case starts to fall apart even further. Oxford Economics, one of the firms used to build a positive case for hosting, also flagged a reduction in European visitor numbers to the US in 2026. Geopolitical tensions, immigration policy changes, and increased border scrutiny are all dampening the international tourism numbers that the net benefit math depends on. You can't have a $3.3 billion tourism windfall in New York if international fans aren't coming. So you have Vancouver absorbing up to $145 million in net taxpayer losses, Toronto running a $380 million budget while hiking property taxes, New Jersey already out $37 million before the first whistle, and 11 US cities waiting on $625 million that hasn't moved. The revenue waterfall is real, it's just flowing in one direction, and it's not toward the cities. What nobody knew when they signed those host agreements, or maybe what they chose not to look at too closely, is that this structure wasn't an accident. FIFA didn't stumble into a deal this good. They engineered it. FIFA's host agreements don't expire when a new government takes over. Mexico signed its deal in 2016 under President Enrique Peña Nieto. 2 administrations later, President Claudia Sheinbaum is still bound by it. She negotiated to limit the exemptions to just the 2026 fiscal year instead of through 2028, but the core structure held. The contract survived. That's not a coincidence. FIFA writes these agreements to be legally durable across political cycles on purpose. The structure is clean. FIFA mandates full tax exemptions for itself, its subsidiaries, its suppliers, and its contractors. It keeps 100% of ticket revenue, broadcast rights, and global sponsorship. Host cities get the economic activity that spills out. Tourism spending, hotel nights, restaurant tabs, but none of the direct revenue the event itself generates. And because the contract is in place before the bid is even awarded, cities have almost no leverage to change it once they're in. The $14 billion projection isn't luck. FIFA expanded to 48 teams specifically to add more matches and more ticket inventory. Dynamic pricing on finals tickets pushed prices from $630,700 between sales windows. The US market, the largest sports economy on earth, was always the target. Every piece of the 2026 format was designed to maximize what FIFA extracts, not what host cities recover. And cities bought the prestige argument. They were told the visibility alone would pay dividends. Investment attraction, tourism legacies, brand elevation. But Oxford Economics is already flagging reduced European visitor numbers to the US this year. The tourism upside that was supposed to offset the costs is softer than the models assumed, and the costs are harder than anyone admitted in the bid phase. Here's the CEO scorecard if you're keeping one. FIFA A+, locked-in tax exemptions, zero revenue sharing, legally enforceable agreements that survive elections. Host cities, D net losses in Vancouver up to $145 million, a $380 million budget in Toronto competing with a housing crisis, $37 million in stadium retrofits already spent in New Jersey, and $625 million in federal security funding still sitting in a stalled FEMA review. The cities that came out best are the ones that negotiated hard before the ink dried. Kansas City pushed state legislation through in 2022, Senate Bill 652, that locked in sales tax exemptions and gave them structural leverage other cities didn't have. That's the lesson. The real negotiation happens before the bid is submitted, not after. Revenue share clauses, reimbursement caps, tax carve-outs, if it's not in the agreement going in, it won't be there when the bills come due. Prestige doesn't pay security contractors. Visibility doesn't cover turf retrofits. And a $17.2 billion GDP projection doesn't help a city COO testifying before Congress that they don't have the money to keep the event safe. The trap was never hidden. It was in the contract the whole time. FIFA will make $14 billion. Most host cities will spend more than they recover. That's not a prediction. It's already happening with 100 days to go. If you work in sports business, this is the masterclass. The deal structure matters more than the deal size. Subscribe so you don't miss the next breakdown, and send this to someone who still thinks hosting a World Cup is always a win.